Welcome to the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we'll be chatting with everyday people living extraordinary lives. So they've learned how to activate their potential and are helping to illuminate others. So I hope you will join me in listening to their journey. And if you like what you hear, and I think you will, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. The world could use a lot more activation and illumination. Have a great day. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. You are going to hear me speak with Brian Palmer of Alberta, Canada. And Brian has a fascinating story. Not an easy life by far. He had years of violence, childhood sexual abuse, prison system at one point, drugs and alcohol. And he had a lot of hate going on in his life, and he had a lot of circumstances that had created that. But you are going to learn how he was able to find connection and to release it, believe it or not, at the Trucker Convoy. So tap into this one. Brian Palmer, I'm telling you, he can make anyone feel a lot more than they previously were. So tap in, listen to Brian Palmer. Now, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Brian. Brian and I have connected. He's the husband of a friend of mine who I haven't known for very long, but I happenstance connected with them at an event up in British Columbia, the New Human event. And Brian, I'm telling you, shocked and awed the crowd at his heartfelt story. He was brought up on stage and asked to share some of his story. So I wanted to connect with Brian because honestly, you guys, I don't know if I've ever met anybody else that can just go into their heart so easily as he can. And he has a life of different events and different things and circumstances that have happened to him. But I'm telling you, Brian has the attitude and the perspective that I just appreciate so much. So I wanted to bring his story to you. And Brian, maybe start us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Melanie, for having me on this podcast and having interest in what I have to say. Because I do have a lot to say about a lot of things. I have a lot of feelings and opinions and experiences. And, we got to know each other at the New Human event, and that was just absolutely incredible. I mean, what a place to connect. What a place to meet people when they're in their hearts and when they're feeling, the depth of their spirit and their priorities and their boundaries and their principles. And we're all vulnerable. And in that vulnerability is how we all connected. And it's where our strength comes from, right? So to tell you a little bit about myself, there's so many ways I could start this. I grew up in Northern Ontario to a mother and father together family, 4 sisters and a brother. Pretty rough little town, little bilingual town, Northern Ontario. It was difficult when I was young. A lot of turmoil, a lot of difficult things that I was living through. My mother grew up in a pretty rough environment that really scarred her to the soul. And I grew up with a lot of violence. Grew up around a lot of sexual abuse, not in my own family, but by people. There was a lot of violence and abuse. And, there was a large sense of escapism in our life. And I think that's where my disconnection from myself probably began, really, because I was looking for escapism. Like, I felt shameful. I got beaten up a lot, by bigger adults and stuff. And I got abused sexually. And, I went to, I hate to say this, my mother for support, and she didn't know how to cope with those things. So she just, wanted me to shut up about it. And unfortunately, some of these people were close and were at the house at Christmas time, and my mother would make me shake the hands of these men that would molest me. And that turned me into a pretty angry person later in life. I got pretty angry. I used to drink, and I used to act out. I didn't like men in general, right? I'd be at a bar, somebody'd say something wrong to me. I would just ignite and explode. So it was tough, all those things. And most importantly, it was the disconnection that left me always seeking something. And I sought it out at a young age. I sought it out in drugs and alcohol, escapism. I became a slave to escapism. And I spent a lot of years drinking a lot of alcohol and doing a lot of drugs, trying to stay away from how I felt about myself. But what I didn't realize is I'm also an empath, and I was feeling a lot of things that I thought were all mine, and it was so chaotic. And I got teased in school because I had anxiety, and I was always moving and scratching myself, and I really didn't feel like I fit in. So, it was pretty troubling when I was young. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for it today because it gives me such a vast array of experience. Because being into the drugs and stuff led me into living in Montreal at 15. I got kicked out of high school. My mom told me I couldn't live at home, so I had to move out. I moved into Montreal as a young kid from a small town, and shockingly got befriended by Colombians, and that usually goes. Luckily, I made it out alive, but I was young, and I was working with them and doing things with them, not being part of the solution by all means. And I was always on the edge of everything in my life. I had motorcycles and I drove them as fast as I could, an adrenaline junkie. I think for the most part, I didn't really give a shoot about being alive or dead. I really didn't. They chalked it up as an adrenaline junkie, but at the end of the day, I didn't feel like God or Lucifer wanted me. I did so many things to put myself out there and dodging bullets from things and driving 155 miles an hour and flipping and living and all these things that I did because I didn't respect life. I was so confused, it was such a rough time. I didn't know how to be patient. And I would say that most of that comes from being disconnected from my art, because I was labeled a stress ball baby later on in life when I was doing recovery, working, in depth with a drug and alcohol counselor and a psychiatrist. And we did a lot of stuff to try and write up some different ways of dealing with people. I was asked to tour prisons back then, which I didn't do. I wanted to do more high schools and stuff, try to do a pre-approach to teaching people. But, I lived that life for a long time, and I always consider myself a man of faith. I was actually an altar boy when I was young, and I really believed it a lot. But the violence, the meanness of the nuns smashing my fingers because I erased too much, and priests smacking us, because we didn't do the right thing in Mass. I learned that, no respect to the religion, but I couldn't differentiate God from the people that weren't nice. And I really hated it for a long time, I didn't even want to hear the word. So my young years were pretty turmoilous, and, a lot of turmoil. And, I didn't have a lot of luck with the police. I spent a little bit of time in jail for, getting in bar fights and driving motorcycles fast and taking off from the cops and just that general stuff, And I didn't set myself up for success at a young age. I didn't know how to. I couldn't deal with my emotions. It ended up leading me down a path where I had a knack for, when I wanted to do drugs, I wanted to do the best. I wanted to get to the top of the chain and go find the head guy. And that's what I had a knack of doing, of getting right to the top, whether it cost me my life or not. I didn't really care. And I ended up there often, the bosses, the Colombian bosses and different things like that. And in my life, it led me to meet a gentleman who became my best friend. I love the man, and I helped him work out in the gym all the time. We were gym buddies, and he was an entrepreneur, and he helped fill in a man that was in our area. And the end result was he got murdered on a day that I was dropped off maybe 10 minutes earlier. So once again, I dodged a bullet, and it was the first time in my life that I was around someone that was absolutely incredible. And I can honestly say I love the man, and he taught me about love. And we're not gay. Not that I have anything wrong with that, but we're not gay. We were just regular guys. And the guy had my back and I had his, to a level where I would have taken a bullet for him. So when he died, that really rocked my world. That rocked my world to a level I can't even explain. I felt like I was falling for months, and I was in serious addiction, and nobody wanted to be around me. And I used to be a guy previous to that, I had buddies all over the place. I'd go to my hometown, I'd go over to friends, have dinner. They'd have me hold their kids and pictures and Uncle Brian. And then when your best friend gets murdered and you're supposed to be with him, now they're, you're coming down the street, the kids are saying, "Hey, there's Uncle Brian." And the parents are locked in the car doors and closing the windows and telling their kids to shut up. it was another humbling experience. And I would have to say the spirit of my best friend, Randall, drew me out west, away from the world that I was living in. And, I'd lost my father when I was young, 12 years old. I went through that. That's, I hate to go forwards and backwards, but I went through a lot of stuff. My dad died when I was 12 and a half. He died of cancer. I watched him suffer for a lot of years with that illness. But, I'm going to try and jump forward more from these things that seem to be, the negative, but they were and are the catalyst for who I am today, which I wouldn't trade any of it. I lost that friend. I lost my father. I had a bad bike accident a while back. And even up to not long ago, a year ago, I finally went back to treatment a year ago because I had started relapsing after 14 years of being clean and sober. I relapsed, COVID being a large catalyst for it, the whole idea of the control they were implementing on us. And me being an empath, I could feel and sense some of the evils that were possibly coming our way. And I think the simple reality of waking up to, the evils that were going on in our world, the children suffering and all that stuff. So, a year ago, I got my butt straightened out again, and I'm grateful for that, even relapse, because I had a bad car accident and I was busted up really bad. Thought I was going to die. And I thought, this is all going to leave my wife. This is what I'm going to leave my wife. A broken man in a truck, T-boned, and had been relapsing on his drug of choice. And that was so profound for me again.
What was your drug of choice?
Pardon?
What was your drug of choice?
My drug of choice was cocaine. Cocaine, and that's pretty much it. I never got into the speed thing. I used to use Percocets, which is a painkiller, but it can be quite addictive if you add alcohol to it. I just always was into escapism. I was always into not feeling my emotions because I couldn't cope with them. I didn't know how to cope with anything, right? I felt shame. I felt guilt from my childhood, and I carried all these demons around that were put there by somebody else. And for a part of my life, I blamed others for these demons, and I blamed others for my situation, not realizing that to be free of it all, I had to take responsibility and accept my part in all of this so that I could let it go, right? So, I'm jumping all over the place, but a year ago was such a catalyst because I went and did treatment, and we did the New Human event, which was an absolutely incredible time that reminded me, not that I forgot, but it reminded me of human connection. And my experience with human connection, I'll have to back up to when June and I, my wife and I, we volunteered in the Trucker Convoy. And the reason why I went there is because I was pretty much in depression and pretty serious active addiction. And I felt so discouraged about our current situation and our country. I was very angry. And for a better term, I felt like I was at the end game where if they came to my door to tell me I was getting vaccinated, I probably would have been incredibly uncooperative, and it would not have went well. I would have defended that hill with my life, that I'm not getting vaccinated. I'm not saying that I made the right choice to not get vaccinated, but I would have fought equally hard to get vaccinated if we weren't allowed to. I was fighting for freedom of choice. And in the process, I met a gentleman online that I watched. I won't mention his name because he's in trials, unfortunately, in this government, trying to keep his freedom from mischief for being an organizer in the convoy. I went there communicating with him, and June and I went there, and I'm a volunteer mechanic. I'm a heavy-duty mechanic, and I wanted to simply volunteer my time. That was like the last straw before my life fell apart completely. I had to do something. I couldn't sit with myself anymore, doing nothing, getting angry, hating the prime minister, wanting to see his demise, wanting to see, such change and not seeing any way out of the chaos. So the trucker convoy that they organized was a godsend. I didn't realize at the time, but it was to show me and give me a purpose greater than myself. And it was the beginning of reminding me of the beauty and the strength of our hearts and the connection with other people. So I literally went there full of hatred. I used to really dislike, if I may say, the separatists that I call in my area, because in my time when I was young in high school, they separated our high school in half and made half of it French and half of it English. But prior to that, we had a bilingual high school. I'm totally bilingual. And, they made a statement publicly that the Francophone students wanted a French high school. And we did a protest, probably 75, 78% of the Francophone students, we did a protest saying they never even talked to us about that, right? So they rammed that through. And then the day came, they said, pick and choose, Brian. You're either English or you're French. So I went with my roots. I said I'm English and I didn't speak French for probably 15 years. So I had a real serious dislike, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I'm going to talk about how I was relieved of that ugliness that I carried for so many years about the separatists, how I felt about it. So there's that event, and then there's another event with people of I hate to say it, the Muslim religion. And I was in a place called Mauritius. It's an island in the Indian Ocean between Madagascar and Australia. And I was there for a month at a common friend's wedding. And in the process of being there, this girl was quite connected to everybody. She was royalty from the island, and her uncle owned a resort, and her aunt owned another resort, and they had Club Med Mauritius, and they owned a casino. Unfortunately, the casino, it's under French rule, and the casino had been there quite a while. And when the Muslims moved in, some of them said, close your casino, it's against our religion. They refused to. So I found out after the fact that one of the nights that I was at that casino that they had tried to bomb and kill everybody in it because of their religion. And then that kind of got put under the carpet. And then, the days proceeded. 2 weeks later, Sandy Chung, well, I shouldn't say her name, but she got married. And there's probably 600, 700 of us at the wedding. And then all of a sudden, about 300 phones, 400 phones started ringing instantly. The group of people, religious people that didn't want that casino walked in. And this is going to be sounding pretty vulgar. They put a bullet in the children and the parents. They killed them all and then blew the place up in the name of their God. So for a long time, when I saw a turban, I was not a happy guy. The radicals had poisoned my view, and I wasn't healthy enough to not paint the whole group with one paintbrush. So once again, now we move forward to the convoy. I go there full of hatred for Muslims, full of hatred for separatists, full of hatred for my government, for the corruption in my government, for the COVID vaccine. They were trying to force us all to take the vaccine, and even my job was starting to push it. And the place I used to work is under serious legal litigation right now in regards to forcing people to take vaccines. And the convoy, I was in touch with one of the organizers, and he just made it sure I understood that it was a protest of peace. And if I didn't have peace in my heart, peace in my mind, don't come. So I made a decision before I left. I'm going to do my best to try and let go of that hatred and let go of that frustration. So I kind of went there numb a little bit, but a little bit open-minded. And we started driving down the highway with the group from Alberta, and it wasn't long that the magic started to happen. There were people lining up on the streets, and Mennonites communities and Hutterite communities along the highways. They're proper, right? So a man will go to a man, a woman will go to a woman, and we'd be stopped at a red light in traffic, and the man would walk up to me, the woman would walk up to my wife. We'd open our windows, and they were handing us food and supporting us. And I also learned that the women in these communities often are not just the teachers, but also the bus drivers. And it was some places sometimes during the trip to Ottawa, 25, 30 below, and there were little girls and boys lined up on the snowbanks. There were children from the Mennonite Hutterite communities supporting us. And there was a point when a group of them, and I wish I knew all their names and stuff, and I could name it now, because the police were not being so cooperative with us. They were giving us hard times being in this parking lot or that parking lot. We're disturbing the peace and that. So I forget exactly where it was along the way from Alberta to Ontario. There was a big dinner set up by I think the Hutterites or Mennonites. But anyways, they had set up incredible buffets for us and hot soups and sandwiches for like hundreds of us. And they were told they couldn't do that by the police. So they packed up and drove 4 hours down the road to meet us further down the road so they could feed us and spoil us. I mean, you were running to your truck because you were so full. They were giving you more food, and treating us with such love and healthy food, some of the greatest food you'll ever eat. So I was like sitting there floating going, what's going on here, man? The support and the cheering. And it was a slow progress of feeling, how do I describe it? That'll be tough to describe how magical it was in the end. It'll be tough. I'll try and bring you up to it. June and I couldn't have done this without my wife. I couldn't have done any of this without my wife. She's my rock. And we went there together. And when we got there, we ended up finding a place to rent a room and to join the convoy. And right off the bat, it was just, the amount of people gathering, it was just, holy crap. There's Twinkle Toes, prime minister of ours, our prime minister had said it's a fringe minority. And when we were there, we were growing in numbers. I think we hit like a 1.2 million the first day. And I look over on the Quebec side from Ottawa, and I remember the person in charge of Quebec had said, my people won't join the convoy. They won't be part of it. And I kind of thought, who cares? They're a bunch of separatists anyways, right? Well, let me tell you, they came and they kept coming. And the turnstile from Quebec to Ontario in Ottawa was spinning right off its axis. And I was like, wow. So that started shaking my hatred I was carrying for the French. And quickly, they were coming in droves. There were so many, thousands and thousands of them, carrying French flags. And I looked at the French flag from Quebec, and for the first time in my life, I looked at that flag and I felt pride. And I can speak French, so I communicate well with them. And they were singing Canada in French. And all of a sudden, I started hugging. I don't know what. I tried to hug 1.5 million people. And I started hugging. It seemed like the more I hugged, the lighter I felt. And, days went by. We're just hugging. We're talking. You might not have went more than a couple of 100 feet down the road, but because there was so many people there and it was so condensed. And our people were, volunteers were coming in and cooking big, giant pots of food. And, one day it was a French recipe soup. The next day it was Italian, 20 feet down the road. And there's if you can imagine, there's 1 million people there. It was just packed with people and crazy. And a couple of days had went in, and I was at a bank getting a little bit of money and waiting in line, and there was this gentleman with a turban in front of me. And I looked at that turban, and for the first time in I don't know how long, I didn't feel hate. And I started looking at the lines and the creases in his turban, and I thought to myself, you know what? That looks beautiful. And I realized he put in a lot of love and care, and it's his faith and his belief, and he had put everything in that. And he turned around in shock because I was staring right at him, and he just felt uncomfortable. And I just said, I apologize. I'm admiring your turban. I'm admiring the care and the love that you put into your faith, and it's admirable. And we hugged. We hugged right then and there, and I think it was a little awkward for both of us, but I didn't realize at that exact time, but the magic was happening. I was hugging away my hatred. I was hugging away my discrimination. I was hugging away my judgment. I was hugging away my own self-hatred. And I was, by doing that, it was freeing up space inside of me, right? And that space I didn't realize was going to get filled with the joy and the love and the light that was going on all around us. And the days went by, and the hugs started getting longer and more intense and more meaningful, like we had experienced at New Human. You hug and you just hold, you really hold, and you really mean that hug, and you really connect with that other human being. And it was so unbelievable. As the days were going by, I was feeling more and more moved. I was feeling more and more relieved. And I thought to myself, if there's a God, he is definitely here. I was feeling the peace, Meanwhile, I'm seeing the cops beating on veterans, and I'm watching the cops run over people and grab people and beat the shit out of them. And it's tough to see that in my country, seeing our justice system turn on law-abiding, innocent, non-criminal, law-abiding citizens, and seeing them pick on us and beat on us and brutalize us and do things that is a real crime against humanity. But there was too much love and light there to be stuck on anything negative. It kept going. Every day I kept hugging and hugging. And I think my wife showed you those pictures of me walking down that back alley that one night where there was all these orbs all around me. It was absolutely incredible. I was walking. It was a little drizzly out, and it was dark at night, and there was some lights, street lights around. And I was walking down the street, and June took some pictures, and there were orbs all around me. And when I looked at it, I realized that I wasn't alone there, that there was just this energy that was so much bigger than all of us, it seemed. And I'm realizing, talking to you right now, this energy that was bigger than all of us, actually the energy was us. It was us creating that. And I went about hugging more and talking. And it got to this point where I would hug someone and I'd have to back up and go, is this a man? Is this a woman? What languages do you speak? What color is your skin? It was like disappearing because we were hugging, and it was like we were just these energies together, and we were connecting, and we were looking at each other. And it was seemingly we were understanding each other by looking at each other without even saying a word. So there was this light growing. And I realized at that time that the government was getting antsy about something. It seemed like the world was getting antsy about something. And I think that something they were getting antsy about is the magic that was happening at the convoy was us all realizing that we are all one. We are all connected. We are all of the same light, no matter what religion, no matter what skin color, no matter what sex, no matter what geographical location, it doesn't matter. There is a rudimentary connection with all of us. And in that connection is a freedom, a release, and a strength in us that is beyond comprehension. I can't even really begin to describe what it was like. It was like you felt like you were getting run over by a big giant snowball on a mountain, and you're just a bunch of people standing there and getting run over by this big snowball of light and love. But thinking about it right here, right now, talking with you, I realize we were the ones creating it. And that's what they were afraid of. They were afraid of us figuring out that our strength lies in love and light. Our strength lies in connection. And that connection can happen when you're holding.
This episode brought to you by bizbloomer.com. bizbloomer.com is your friend to small and local businesses, a platform and directory that provides exposure and support to small ma-and-pa type stores or local entrepreneurs, helping them make an impact in their own local communities. bizbloomer.com is taking the corporate out of business and helping small businesses become relevant and essential again. Businesses can get started for free. Search for BizBloomer businesses in your area. Check them out today. bizbloomer.com. That's bizbloomer.com.
Discrimination in your heart. It can't really live when you're holding hatred and when you're living the indoctrination of the deep state and the systems that have been there and have been plotting control over humans for longer than you and I have been alive combined. Our parents, way before my parents were born, they've had a system in place of control. And I believe that COVID is a large catalyst for us to wake up to a lot of the realities. But, I wouldn't have had a clue, about things. I went there to that convoy pretty much naive, pretty much with my head in the clouds. And I was just like blown away by the love. I was blown away by the connection. And it felt so incredibly powerful that I realized that this is how we win. Not win a race, but how we win the freedom of human nature. The freedom of human nature is to be able to connect. And we were all connecting. And that's what they were trying to deny us, that connection. So we went there originally. Everybody had a kind of a different purpose of why they might have went there. But man, we just connected in this love and this light that was just this aura of wellness that was around us. And it was so peaceful that no matter how much evil the government kept trying to inject into it, it stayed peaceful. The only violence that occurred was from the government beating up the convoy people. That was the only violence. There wasn't like anybody from the convoy going after a police officer or going after another person. There was no violence within us. And no matter what they did, they just couldn't squash it. And I realized that is the thing they fear the most. They fear that we realize that we are so powerful in our hearts when we connect with other people. I believe it's what we are supposed to be. It was so simple. And, I was still using, not there, but I was still in my active addiction around that time. And I left the convoy and I was still a little soured out, getting home to drones leaving the ground at my place. They locked our account away that we had, people finally convinced June and I to make a GoFundMe page, and we raised a little bit of money because we spent about $5,000 getting there and staying there. And I was there as a volunteer mechanic to just help if anything breaks down, get it off the street. Cops are happy. Convoy don't look bad. I just wanted to volunteer my time. any way I can. But I got caught up in the love and light that was the event, right? It was so incredible. But like, I left there, and I had some dark times still left to go through, and I almost not forgot that I was there, but I forgot about the connection a little bit. I got away from it. And then that's where you and I met really deeply at the New Human event. It reminded me of the connection. And since the New Human event, I've not lost that connection. It seems to have helped me root myself into Mother Earth, where we are all connected. And I look at people and I try to be from the heart when I talk to somebody, and it seems like I'm gravitating and they're gravitating towards me, and it's connection I seek. Connection. Connection is the opposite of isolation. Isolation is where people find addiction, where they find depression, where they find suicide, where they find all kinds of character defects that present themselves. And the opposite of that is connection. And human beings are meant to be connected. Everywhere I go, I find connection with people. And what helps me get to that connection with people is my experiences. As much as I might have disliked the things that happened to me as a child, they are a large part of who I am today. And I couldn't trade any of it, because then I wouldn't be able to be sitting here with you and talking about human connection. The connection that we have, the connection that we spent with a bunch of people at the New Human event that has never left me. It is what I seek. I'm drawn to that connection with humanity. And that they don't want us to be connected, because in our connection, that's our strength, right? We're meant to help each other. We're meant to lift each other up, not push each other down. And we're distracted by work. We're distracted by TV, by social media, and all that different stuff. We're so disconnected. It's all meant to disconnect us from ourselves. Because, in my life, I spent so much time seeking and searching outwards towards the sunset or the sunrise or the moon or the water or the desert, whatever. I was always going away from myself in search of something that was missing in my life. And the convoy brought me into my own heart. I didn't make the absolute connection of it all until we went to the New Human event, when I realized that the journey is not outwards, it's inwards into our hearts. That's where we're going to find all the answers to our questions, the solutions to our problems. And in being connected in our hearts, we're acting that way more with other people, and we connect with other people. And I find so much fulfillment when I talk to people. I always connect. No matter what, we connect, because we're meant to connect. We're meant to be connected all across the board. I wonder about the past, the Mayans and the Egyptians, and how it was back then. They seemingly had such incredible abilities to do things we can't even comprehend today, but they didn't have all these cars, and they didn't have all this internet and stuff. I think it's because they didn't need it, because they were all connected, right? They were all connected, and all their temples were designed to be, means of connecting, right? And mediums in which they connected with other people all over the place. It's crazy, but that's where we're at today. I think the awakening that we're talking about going on in humanity, that I believe COVID has set us upon, is connection. We're all seeking something now. We're all seeking something more than what is, because you know what? It's just not good enough anymore. We're not finding at peace.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Tell us a little bit about your experience of losing everything.
Well, Convoy knocked the shit out of me. Not Convoy, sorry. COVID knocked me up a little bit, and I lost my faith. And I'm not going to say one faith's better than the other, because anybody that uses a faith to believe in something, to be a better human being and have a better life, it's a great thing. Myself, I believe in God, and I used to use that as a stepping stone for my rough days, and I'd lost all that because of COVID, and I was in a pretty dark place. And in the process of all that, of trying to come back to a better heartfelt way in myself, and working on trying to rekindle a relationship with the God of my understanding, our house burnt, and everything we owned. And at that point in my life, not having a lot of faith, I believed in my things. And at that point, I think it's safe to say money had become my God. That's what I chased. That's what I seeked. That's what I served. I worked at a job in northern Alberta, in the oil sands, and made incredible money, spent incredible money, and was trying to fill a void with money and things. And then this fire come along, and I actually stayed behind in the fire. People didn't want me to, but I was not in a healthy way in my head. I drove my machine through the bush in the fire and was literally running through the fire to try and save things, push trees over to stop the fire from burning this garage, these things in it, and that area for those things. And then everything got wiped out, and I was left just absolutely destroyed. I didn't know where to look. Lost everything I owned financially. I had invested in a bunch of things so that I could use my talents to rebuild things and make money off it, blah, blah, blah. Because COVID had caused us to lose a lot of money in shares. I lost $500,000 in shares with the job that I was working. So I had lost my retirement savings. So I put my eggs in one basket and bought a bunch of stuff. Then the fire came and took it all. So I was left, wow. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm a guy that, because of my past experiences, I used to live in the past a lot. And I would always, feel sorrow about my past, about the things that happened to me and the people I lost. And maybe a little bit of self-pity and self-sorrow. And after the fire came, I could not hang out in yesterday anymore at all. For a better term, I'm sorry, I probably would have ended my life. If hanging out in yesterday is where I go to die. So I had to digest this, right? I had no choice. It was what I was left with. I had to digest it. And the more I started digesting it, and then I ended up going to recovery treatment and start my recovery again. So it was a perfect catalyst for me to really look back at the fire and see what is it really doing to my life? What is it offering me? What do I do with it? Am I going to curl up into a ball and die, or am I going to stand up and use this as an experience? And I look back at all my experiences and I go, oh, wow, I've been through some different things, right? You can call them traumatic, you can call them whatever, but I've been through a lot of stuff, not more than anybody else. There's people who got it worse than me, but what am I going to do with all these experiences? And one of the things becoming the greatest teacher in my life, aside from time, is this fire. It taught me that I can't live in yesterday anymore, and I finally given up on having a better past. I finally given up. I can't have a better past. What do I do with it? Well, the way I see it is everything from the past allows me to connect with a lot of people, from being sexually abused, hanging out with some crazy gangs and, having guns put to your head, to loss of my father, accidents, recovery, relapse, and then later an awakening, the fire, losing all the things I had. I thought I lost everything I had, but really now I'm in a place where I have gained more than any money in the world can buy. I could have all the money in the world. I could not buy the peace and connection that I have inside myself. I realized the most important thing in my life is connection with my wife, my grandkids. I don't feel this. Thanks to all my life and the Convoy and New Human Event, the experiences that we had at New Human Event, I'm in a place where I no longer have this feeling and this obsession with needing something or wanting something. I've lost everything in the fire, and I feel like I have more than I've ever had. I have more than I can imagine. I get days where I'm so full of gratitude, I've got to go out and just talk to strangers and share some of this gratitude because I feel like I'm going to explode. I got so much of it. The fire has got so much stuff to teach me. One of the things it's taught me is, by the way, the universe is not out to get us, not out to get anybody. The universe presents us with opportunities to grow, to be better versions of ourselves, to find peace in ourselves, and connect with ourselves, because we are connected with the universe. We are one with it. It is one with us. We're all connected. And in searching and seeking to buy things and do other things, we get further and further away from ourselves. So the fire has taught me, one, to let go of yesterday. Tomorrow's coming, but there's no guarantee. We weren't born with a guarantee. So I live in today. And what matters today is I feel fine. I don't want to leave the house. I come home from work after I've worked my 14 on, and I love being home with my wife. She might think I'm a bit of a couch potato now a little bit, but I love hanging out with my wife and the cats. And when the grandkids come, it's like I just want to sit back and watch the movie theater and feel the love. Like, children make us all feel really good. And I think I really feel it more now because the New Human Event helped me learn how to live inside my heart. The Convoy helped me to realize that when you are in your heart and you connect with other people, there is such a fulfillment of spirit in there. It's like I don't seek anymore. I don't search. I'm never alone. Even when I'm in a room, It can be blackened out in a room. I'm alone in the middle of the bush nowhere. I'm still not disconnected. I'm connected. And that doesn't go away anymore. And I'm so wondering, like, the addict in me, the recovering addict in me, the people pleaser in me, and the scared little kid in me wonders, when's the ball going to drop? When's this gonna end? When are things going to get bad? Well, they don't have to. And they don't necessarily do get bad. As long as we stay grounded in our hearts, it keeps us in a place where we're connected to our hearts. And if we allow, our feet are connected to the ground, to the earth, so we're connected, and then we're connected to all the other feet that are walking on the earth as we're supposed to. So it comes all back full circle to connection. So what really, when we were at the New Human event, I got a chance to talk there. It was the first time I talked in front of a bunch of people. And like, I'm not going to lie.
You wouldn't have known it. You wouldn't have known it.
I thought I was going to pee myself. I won't lie. And I was pretty scared and nervous, and I let go and I just talked. I don't even know what I said pretty much. But after the fact, people being moved by what I said and feeling connection was such an incredible reward that I was able to make people feel better about themselves. It was like it became a calling for me that is what I would find a life worth living, where I get to connect with human beings. I get to talk with them, and I get to show them themselves, inside themselves, the light and the love that's in their hearts, and help them focus on that and get rid of the rest of the junk we've been indoctrinated with, and get rid of the rest of the stuff, all fear-based, right? Try and get rid of fear and discrimination and hatred. It's such a waste of time. And in connection, oh man, the possibilities are endless. Like, I don't even know how to explain to you. We lost everything in the fire. I have a toolbox that was a snap-on toolbox. I'm a mechanic, heavy-duty mechanic, and all my life collected tools. I probably had 120 grand in one toolbox alone and lost it all. And I've gained so much more from the fire. So much more. I get to talk with you. I get to be here right now and do this and be here 100%. Before the fire, I had enough stuff, enough jobs to do the rest of my life, and then some. I would not have spent time with my wife like I do. I would have not appreciated my wife like I do. I probably wouldn't have went to the New Human event. I wouldn't spend time with my grandkids. I wouldn't have found the most important part of all this. I wouldn't have found me. I wouldn't have, the New Human event brought us to look into our hearts and to get into our hearts. Well, I don't want to leave here. I don't want to leave here. I've spent so much time in my life trying to stay away from being connected with myself because I feared my feelings, and my shame that I carried from the sexual abuse that had nothing to do with me. It was some other people that put it there for me. I did not cope with it all. So I was always hiding from myself. And, I did a great connection. June and I did a great connection at the convoy, but the New Human event reminded me of what my purpose is, where is a really important part of my life fulfilled. It's fulfilled in staying connected. In my heart, I'm staying connected with other people. That's where I find fulfillment. Sorry to interrupt you, Brian. What can you see for your future? Like, you talk about this and how you can help people and stuff. What would be the ideal future for Brian moving forward? Because I see it happening for you, honestly. Like, I saw how you showed up at that event, and I hear what you're saying in your words, and I know that what's going to happen is that people are going to resonate with what you say, and they're going to want to know how this transpired and find some of the strength in you that they need in themselves. So what can you see for your life moving forward and how to make this happen? Well, first of all, I have a job that allows me to have 14 days off in one time. This is actually the first time I've done a podcast, and I hope it's not the last. I'm not 100% sure how to get myself into a place where I get to do what we're doing here more, so I can just talk about anything that people want me to talk about and form connections with other people, and so they know they're not alone, so I can help them find that beauty and strength inside themselves. So the future, how do I see it? I'd really love to be standing on stage and interacting human to human like we did at the New Human event. I was so incredibly moved by Zach Bush and Charles Eisenstein and Kevin Preston. It was so incredible. I don't want to put myself at that caliber because I probably never will be, but I would love to be part of those kinds of things, to be able to speak about whatever I'm asked to speak about, or just freewheel it, right? Let it go and just talk about whatever's on my mind. Because at the end of the day, there's a dream. And the dream is, if I could speak about my life experiences to other people, and I could help one human being find a better way and share a little bit of the incredibleness that is inside of all of us. The one, I feel it, that connection. I feel it. You feel it. It's so amazing. If I could help someone find that connection, that would be a life worth living. That would be such fulfillment for me. I would go to my grave and be the most peaceful spirit in the world, knowing that I've helped someone connect with their hearts, right? We would connect on, I believe that we could connect on my experiences to start, and then we could connect more deeply and then connect in our hearts and then help them connect into their hearts. And then they're connected to everything like we are, right?
Yeah, you're not only a heavy duty mechanic, but you're also an electrician.
I want to make connections. I want to make connections. I want people to realize that the journey's not outwards. It's not that way, out that way. It's in this way. And in there are the answers to your questions and the solutions to your problems. And in connecting in our hearts, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to connect in our hearts, but that's the journey. So you're going to say?
Yeah, sorry, I thought I was starting before you finished there. So when you talk about your childhood, the sexual trauma, and so for people that are going through that or that are holding on to that, what is something, like if they just hear this podcast, or, what is something that you could tell them that would make things a little bit better for them to release some of that?
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
I think the most important thing is I always carried a lot of shame about it. It was the realization that the demons and the hauntings and the feelings that you have from those events were put there by somebody else. And you are allowing their actions to have free rental space in your head, your heart, and your life. And you owe it to yourself to realize that it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong at all. The shame that you feel is one that you create because of your misunderstandings of the events that happened. And I can honestly say, you've got to learn to love yourself. Self-care. Something I really, really didn't know how to do well at all was to learn to love myself. I didn't like myself. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about life. How could I care about anything else? I don't care about anything, right? I was just an empty shell because I was living in that space. There's so much more to life, and it's not in fighting. It's not in overcoming or succumbing. It's in surrendering. You got to let it go to win. I used to view my addiction, a guy mentioned it, Big J, he's a guy from Newfoundland. I met him in treatment in 2008, and he said, you know what, that's it. I'm not getting back in the ring with this thing. And I thought of the ring, and I thought of my most favorite fighter I've ever seen, which was Mike Tyson. I just loved watching Mike Tyson. And I realized that my addiction is like Mike Tyson. And I kept getting in the ring with him and wondering why I got my head knocked off. And for a better term, I went in the ring the last time. I walked up to Mike and I gave him the belt that I was holding in my hand, and I said, you win. And that's how I get to win, is by surrendering. It's so back-asswards, right? By surrendering, I get to win, right? And I hang out with the winners today. Not that people that are using are losers. They're losing their own personal battle. But by hanging out with the winners, you're winning the battle of being a better human being for yourself. Because at the end of the day, when that final day comes, when we take our last breath, what's going to really matter? I think of that sometimes, and it sure puts things in perspective. What's going to matter on that last day? Is it going to be your money? Is it going to be the guilt that you carry for events that happened when you're a kid? No. What's going to matter is the memories that you build from moments with people. Connection. You know, I'm realizing here talking with you, the more I talk about it, because I haven't talked to a lot of people, you know, in a while like this, to this depth, and always the same. It's connection. When we're together, like minds, talking about the same things and being around people that help elevate us a little bit, and their energy is a little higher than ours, and they talk and we listen and we connect, and our spirits rise a little bit. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to be community. You know, that New Human event, that's something we should be doing once a month. It should be like implemented in schools. Everybody in the world should be doing those kinds of things, because like both Charles Eisenstein and Zach Bush had talked about, is trying to live from your heart. And when you try to actually start acting from your heart and you start living from your heart, I want to do that so that when I talk to people, I'm talking the talk, not just preaching word. You know, I'm trying to live from my heart more. That's what it's all about, is staying connected to your heart, connected to other people.
Is there anything you would have taken away from your experiences as a child, or, you know, through this? Is there anything that you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I can't change it. I wouldn't change any of it, because all that pain is what fuels the fire in me now. All of the adversities I've been through in my life are becoming my gifts. They're becoming the things that enable me to love more, to shed more light, because there are people that have been through such harder things than myself. And I realized that what I thought were bad experiences and this and that are actually gifts. They're gifts to help free my spirit so that I could share it with others, because I'm meant to help people. I'm meant to shed light into people's lives so they can find their own hearts and realize their own light. In that, they'll find their strength. And then they'll help others. And we can continue to do the things we're supposed to do, which is connect and rise. That's how we're going to make the world that we want to live in.
You know, honestly, Brian, I'm sitting here thinking of everything that you're saying, and I could not pick a more perfect guest who embodies a better message for this podcast, which is basically the name of it, Activate and Illuminate. And when I didn't honestly intend to start out doing a podcast, but when it transpired, this was the type of story and the type of connection that I was hoping to be able to transfer to people, and the type of story that I would want to listen to while I was driving in my car. And I'm telling you, just listening to this, like, I have felt such deep levels of connection. I've had tears in my eyes. I've had, and I just, you know, want to thank you so much for showing up, because in this moment of when you declared your intention of speaking on stage, I'm telling you, I have no doubt, my friend, that you will be speaking on many stages, because this is what people crave. This is the authentic human, the authentic version of masculinity, the authentic version of a person that people are craving. And I just want to thank you for showing up to show us that, because it's innately beautiful to me.
I can't thank you enough, and I'm humbled. I'm very humbled. I'm very grateful. And I see this between you and I as a beginning of connecting with other people and getting ourselves out into the world, helping people become free like us, thanks to our lives, our experiences, and man, the New Human event. You know, those people.
We should have tickets.
Right?
We could do some affiliate sales here.
Oh man.
Honestly, it's you know, we'll put some links to that in the show notes. Now, we'll put some links for people to be able to connect to you as well, Brian, because I think that's going to be powerful. And is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head or how, an email address or something that you want them to connect through, or do you just want us to put it into the show note?
I mean, if it helps, I'll put my email out there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's BG Palmer 13.
And we'll have that listed. Is there anything that we missed or that we didn't touch on, Brian, that you just want to share and elaborate on?
I'm I was a little bit, I'm feeling kind of quiet right now. I've never done this, and I feel humbled. I feel humbled.
Well,
I'm grateful to share time. I would love to be able to do this. Is there anything else I'd like to say? Nothing I feel, but is there things I could say? Endless. I love to talk. I'm like this guy with no friends, and somebody comes over, it's like, oh, wow, I got a new friend. Let me bombard you with information. I'll talk your ear off. You'll leave. So I'm a bit of a geek that way, but no, I would love to connect with people. And first of all, if there's something I'd like to say, yeah, I learn a lot more from listening than I do from talking. Listening and looking and observing and feeling, connecting, feeling. I learned so much from that. And the only fear I have really is of losing that connection. And by doing what we're doing here today, you've reminded me so much of the importance of me spending some real meditative time staying connected. I can't thank you enough. This is a lot of fun.
And honestly, like, this story and your ability to tell it is so important. Yeah, I feel like, you know what? Let's end it there, Brian, because we've touched on lots of things. What you say, that feeling of connection is the most important. I feel like that's a great place to leave it. And I would like to, extend an offer. I feel like there's going to be, you're going to have people reaching out to you, and you're going to be able to impact lives that you don't even know about right now. And I think we should keep in touch, of course, and just
Absolutely.
follow up and share what transpires from this with people, because I know that there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff that we don't even know about now.